Hey honey,
Yeah,
wanna hear about ancient Greek fighting?
sure.
Let's go. So I'm gonna go over the ancient Greek rules for wrestling, boxing and pankration. Give examples of famous practitioners and how they differ from their modern counterparts.
Okay.
Let's start with wrestling. The modern rules of Greco-Roman wrestling are as follows. Bouts consist of 2 3-minute rounds with 30-second break in between. Wrestlers earn points by executing holds, throws, locks and other legal takedowns or by doing a reversal, meaning gaining control over your opponent from a defensive position. Holds below the waist are not allowed and neither are any offensive or defensive leg techniques. Maximum of 5 points can be earned for grand amplitude throws.
One of those.
Techniques that expose the opponent's back to the mat for several seconds. Victory can be achieved through either having the most points at the end of the match, pinning the opponent to the ground, which results in an instant victory, or through technical superiority by earning 8-point lead. If you want a prime example of a modern wrestler, check out the 3-time Asian Championship gold medalist and world champion Akzol Makhmudov from Kyrgyzstan. One of the pound for pound greatest at tossing a dude.
Just yeet them.
Fucking yeet. According to what I could find from multiple sources is that there were possibly 2 types of ancient Greek styles, stand-up and ground wrestling. But I will go with the rule set given by Christopher Miller in their essay Submission Fighting and the Rules of Ancient Greek Wrestling. According to Miller, the rules were no striking, gouging, biting or grasping the genitals.
No awi.
A bout is won by scoring 3 points. Points can be scored in 3 ways. The opponent's back touching the ground, opponent tapping due to pain or fear, opponent making contact with the ground outside the allocated wrestling area. All kinds of holds, locks and throws are permitted ways of achieving these goals. After scoring a point, the opponent must be given time to rise onto their feet and a moment to rest before continuing. Miller seems to imply that breaking any of these rules could be punished by the referee whipping the rule breaker until said behavior is corrected.
Owie.
Owie. An example of a famous ancient Greek wrestler would be Heracles, who wrestled a lion to death. So the biggest difference between the ancient and modern styles is that back in the day rounds weren't timed, but were based on a 3 strikes and you're out system, and leg holds, trips and reaps were apparently all permitted. And the whipping. That's not done anymore, I think. I do think permitting leg techniques changes the game quite a lot, so you could say that the ancient Greek wrestling was closer to modern freestyle than it is to Greco-Roman wrestling. Next one is boxing. Modern rules of professional boxing are: fights last up to 12 3-minute rounds with 1 minute rest in between. Only allowed methods of attacking is punches with a clenched fist. If you've ever seen like a punching glove with the white dot at the front of the glove, that's the part you hit with. Punches below the belt or back of the opponent's head and neck are not allowed. The ring ropes cannot be used for leverage. Opponent cannot be hit when they're down. After a low blow, fighter can be given up to 5 minutes of recovery time. These are the methods in which a match can be won. Boxer is floored and cannot get up within 10 seconds. This is knockout or KO. Boxer shows unwillingness to continue, or referee, the corner team or medical staff pulls the fighter out. This is called technical knockout or TKO. If neither one of these or a disqualification due to rule breaking happens, the winner comes down to judges' scorecard. My favorite example of a modern boxing is the 2-time Olympic and world champion Ukrainian Vasily Lomachenko, one of the greatest technical fighters I have ever seen. You know the guy? He goes like...
No, I don't know the guy.
Okay. Now the rules of ancient boxing, which I based on Steve Ross Murray's article Boxing Gloves of the Ancient World. Fights were continuous with no rounds or mandatory breaks. To win, you must either knock out your opponent or force him to submit by lifting a single finger. Only striking techniques, so no clinching, grabbing, scratching, biting or throwing. The use of kicks is still in question, but since pankration was a thing and they wanted to keep the three styles separate, I'm assuming kicks weren't allowed. There were no weight classes. Fighters would wrap their hands with around 4-meter long leather straps called the thong that would later evolve into gloves. Fights were held in a dirt pit called skamma. And again, a referee would whip a rule breaker. An example of an ancient Greek boxer would be Damarcus of Parasia, who turned into a werewolf after eating a kid.
That's rough.
So the biggest difference between modern and ancient boxing are the existence of rounds, rings and weight classes, the use of gloves and the modern use of clinch in a boxing match. Still, I do think ancient and modern boxing are closer to each other than the previous wrestling styles were. There's not a whole lot you can do differently when the goal is just to fist the dude in the face. And lastly, we have MMA and pankration. Now, full disclaimer, MMA is not and does not claim to be the modern successor to pankration. There are at least a few organizations trying to claim they are the proper successors, but MMA is the closest we have to ancient pankration in terms of popularity, relevance to the culture it's practiced in, and it's most recognizable to average Joe. The unified rules of mixed martial arts are: match can be won with either a knockout, submission, or by judge scoring in your favor. Rounds are scored on a 10-point system where points are given in order of most to least important for effective striking and grappling, effective aggressiveness, and ring control. Fouls in MMA are given for headbutts, fish hooking, eye gouging and poking, biting, spitting, clawing, pinching or jamming fingers into any orifice, hair pulling, pile driving, strike to the opponent's spine, back of the head, throat or groin, 12 to 6 elbows, kneeing or kicking a downed opponent's head, stomping on a downed opponent, holding the opponent's gloves, shorts or the cage or throwing your opponent out of the cage, purposefully avoiding contact with the opponent, or unsportsmanship-like behavior. Best example of an MMA fighter is the current one flyweight champion, the inaugural and former UFC flyweight champion, gamer, streamer, family man, and USA's gift to the world, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson! Now the ancient art of pankration. I didn't really find any sources for a comprehensive set of rules for pankration. Much of what I know of pankration comes from two excellent YouTube channels called Amo Pankration and Pankration Channel. Links in the description below. So, here are the things we do know. No gouging, biting or unsportsmanship-like behavior. Stances similar to Muay Thai long guard. Strikes with open hands. Hammer fists as downward strikes. Low and medium height kicks. Shoulder and arm locks. Throws from the body and catched kicks. Referee overseeing the fight. A rule called orthopia, meaning standing strikes, which might refer to ground and pound not being allowed. An example of a pankratist would be Kratos, who killed all the gods. From all of this we can infer that pankration wasn't a no-holds-barred bloody massacre, but a sophisticated style of fighting mixing both boxing and wrestling with the addition of kicking. The main difference between MMA and the art of ancient pankration are the modern art of ground and pound and cage work, which are distinctive to mixed martial arts as a style. The main point is that even though the setting and equipment might have been less developed, ancient martial arts weren't nearly as bloody as people seem to assume. I like to think that people are and have always been the same, and appreciation of technique, strength and morality have always been more relevant to the art of fighting than just mindless brutality. You got all that, honey?
Yeah.